Peace and blessings, family. Welcome again to another conversation around African spirituality, African spiritual thoughts, the whole nine. And I'm so grateful to be joined yet again with some awesome Queen Mothers. Yay. Thank you, ladies. How you doing this morning?
Great.
Yeah,
Good.
good.
Ooh, I thought we were live already. Okay, so anyway, we started off by first looking at what's the difference between spirituality and religion, and we know sometimes the two overlap. And so, Queen Mother, we're basically giving us a little background on what the difference is between religion and spirituality.
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay, religion is organized, whereas spirituality moves beyond just the organization and looks at the cosmos. It looks deeper into the psychological, into other areas that don't have as many boundaries on it in terms of laws and concepts that religion has. Religion tends to, their laws are to keep people in place while in the same time developing a spiritual relationship with their creator or creatrix. So that's the best way I can do it in terms of how I see it. And
Okay.
what spirituality is versus religion is one's organized and one goes beyond the boundaries of that organization. It goes deeper into the psychological rather than just the scientific.
Yeah.
It goes beyond the boundaries.
And when we go beyond the boundaries, it allows us to have a more personal relationship with uh, with Great Spirit or the God of your understanding, by whatever name you may call him or her. Uh, it because you're not bogged down in dogma and in the laws and regulations and the overlay of religion, you are able to plug in to the God of your understanding or Great Spirit, Olodumare, whatever name that you call God by. You're able to plug into that like you like you plug into a socket. You and the socket, you and your God become one. With religion, you have to go through someone else to bring you
Get
to
to God.
God. This way, you plug right into God because God lives within you. You are a divine being. You are a co-creator with the God of your understanding. That's how we got here. That's who we are. And so we don't need that go-between to legitimize our relationship to that which we are.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm Modupe, did you want to add anything on to that? Or you like ditto? Hit it again. There you go.
Yeah.
Yes, everything that you said. No, also, Oh,
So
God.
with that,
In terms of,
no, sorry, you said something else?
in terms of, huh?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I think of spirituality in terms of relationships too. Like in religion, it seems that motivation is to have a relationship with a person
Mhm.
and form like it's kind of codependent bonds. Like Ian said, you eating the cow to get the grass, but in spirituality, you form relationships with spiritual entities. Um, that's been my experience. Is that um, my focus is on my relationship with Orumala, or my relationship with my ancestors, my relationship with the Orishas, and individually and collectively, so that you kind of build your life around these spiritual relationships, and ultimately your entire life becomes like a ritual because there's not really much you can do that's outside of the framework. It's a way of being in the world more so than something that you just think about, believe, and proclaim. Like we can proclaim scriptures all day long, even within spirituality, but that's more of a religious way of looking at things. It's attached to a dogma, and usually you'll find the idea that one size fits all in most religions. Whereas in spirituality, you got more individual expression of your place in the collective, your place in the world, your place and your own um, what you came here to do, your own destiny. So yeah, that's kind of how I look at it.
Right on, right on.
Mhm.
I should reiterate what they said.
So I looked up the types of spirituality. And then we talk about these types, and I found 5. And I think sometimes I see these inside of spiritual traditions a lot. One is like the mystical spirituality. The second one was authoritarian.
Yeah.
The other one was intellectual.
Mhm.
The other one was service spirituality. And the last one was social spirituality.
Right.
Do you see those 5 things inside of spirituality? And if so,
Yeah.
give us some examples of how you would see mystic, authoritarian, intellectual, service, and social.
Well, when you talk about look at the social versus the different types. Okay, authoritarian is mother, father,
Hmm.
parental. Okay, and that's taught in theological Abrahamic traditions. Okay, that authoritarian is how we look at our parents, is how we look at the God of our understanding, so to speak.
Hmm.
Um,
I get
on
that.
the service spirituality, it is about doing good works, so to speak. And again, that development is in theological institutions. Okay. And it becomes a model for other traditions that have come to the West, African as well as Asian traditions that have come to the West to do more of service and being of service to the deities, okay, and to their human beings. So that means charitable acts, being able to have hospitals, take care of the dying, uh, giving out food, clothing, like that. The mystical is the kind I kind of like because that I do because that's my personal relationship with the cosmos. I like that the manifestation of Orisha in life. So that means as an Elegum or a priest that passes spirits or is in possession of spirits. That gives you a better opportunity to see through the eyes of Orisha up close and personal in your skin. Okay. And it's like you're in a room. Okay. and you're watching your body do these different things and have these different conversations with people, but you're not part of it other than to be a visitor in your own, watching something else take over your body. So that mysticalness of the or mystical ideal is for me um provocative. It's highly provocative because it gives me an opportunity to experience without dying the
Mm.
divine. Okay. So that's one of my favorite. I love that relationship. Um and I learned the most from it. The interesting thing about Ifa and Arumula's relationship, even though Arumula is an Orisha and Ifa is the voice of Olodumare, Ifa, Arumula worked this simultaneous, not simultaneous. They have this very cohesive relationship. And Arumula was probably the greatest of psychics. So what you're in possession all the time with Arumula. Unlike a lot of other relationships with Orisha, it's walking with you 24/7 all the time. So that learning, that download is constant. And you'll find that at some point you recognize it when and it's not taking you where you're going into, that little room over there. You're just in possession and you know things. You don't know why you know things, but you know things. And it takes that place and you'll be, because sometimes before I go to bed at night, I'll be like, did you say that? Did you go back in your head? Did you do that? Did you say that? Or did they say that? And that happens. Okay. So that's why I love the mystical. It is a true relationship with the divine as opposed to the intellectual or the social or the service. They're parts of that. Okay. I don't necessarily like the authoritarian spirituality. Um, I prefer mentorship spirituality because authoritarian, you never know psychologically what you get when somebody you're using that model, and you got to deal with people's issues, psychological issues. How you worked with your mama, how you worked with your daddy comes out in that kind of relationship. And it comes out also in how you view your relationship with God. Yeah. If you're looking at it from a child's place to the higher parent and what they are going to do for you and take care of you, and you don't think.
Mm.
It really doesn't give you an opportunity to think. That's why we have Ori. The one thing about our tradition in terms of Ifa and Orisha is with Ori, everything is connected. Everything. So it's not like, I got to go all off somewhere just to find my relationship with God. I don't have, because my relationship isn't with the Abrahamic God. My relationship is with Olodumare, the Asuwada, the Olorun. And that's so much of a vast relationship. So that's how I see it. That authoritarian has is problematic because it's real problematic because like my mama didn't take no mess. Okay.
Not either.
And so to have to deal with mama in, that mama issues, as a mentor, I look at it from a different perspective. Mentorship allows a person to use their own head. To use, look, you got choices here. You can do good, you can do bad, but it's your choice. Okay. I can help you make better decisions, give you some suggestions, but at the end of the day, that's how you're gonna roll with it, not me. I got enough carrying just me, and the load that I have. So I really don't like the authoritarian spirituality, because sometimes I don't even think it really is a spirituality. Authoritarian really kind of belongs in the realm of just the organization of religion.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, agreed. Mentorship or mentor spirituality is a much better term. But to put just a little wrench in here, with the authoritarian spirituality, it depends on what your relationship was with your mother and your father. Because if your relationship was one in which they allowed you to think for yourself and make your own decisions, and then let you take the consequences of those decisions, then that's a different kind of authoritarianship than just clamping down on what you can and what you can't do. For the others of these, I think they're all, for me, I just put them all together. uh, that is just all spirituality to me. I like the intellectual spirituality because I married that with the mystical spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
It's through the mystical spirituality that heightens my intellectual acumen. And the service spirituality, I don't see how you can be spiritual and not serve the Orisha, the ancestors, and your fellow man. And with the social spirituality, who doesn't like the social? I want to dance and sing and eat and have a good time with spirit and you. You know what I mean? So I just put them all together and say, this is the best of all spiritual worlds. And I can have a good time at the same time and eat some of Ye's good food too.
Right on. What about you, Ifeoma Odupoye? You want to build onto this?
Yeah, mystical spirituality is my favorite. I love that relationship, that the imposition of thought, I love to experience spirit in that way. Mm-hmm. The mysticism of it. I dig that. The ritual and just unlocking of the secrets, and as they just make themselves apparent to you in your life and just seeing it happen in the world. That's my thing. I'm about freedom, so authoritarian spirituality has not worked for me. And I will say though that my first experience in the tradition was in kind of a parent teacher kind of situation. And I think because my godparents were elders, that it was a different experience than but it was parental, because I was young and most of the people who were a part of that house were young. You know what I mean? And we were not maturing at the rate that we were aging. I put it that way. Mm-hmm. We were getting older, but we weren't getting much smarter. You know what I'm saying? And so that worked for me in a lot of ways. But then I think once I got to a certain age, it was like, and then they retired anyway, so it just worked. But having that experience later on in life where somebody was trying to be the what sayer for my life, that really didn't work for me, because I think in spirituality, part of the relationship is to discover who you are, and you have to be in the world doing stuff in order to know who you are.
True.
You can't be under somebody's thumb, because you won't. You find that the power lies with them, and then you'll always question if it lies with you. And it's not a good idea to put anyone's spirit or ori above your own. So that is why the authoritarian thing does not work for adults. I think it has a place if you were to, let's say, I had a small child that was to be a Babalawo or Iyanifa, and I was going to send them to someone to be trained, then that's a different kind of parental relationship, right? Because they can only take care of themselves to a certain degree, and there's a lot of raising involved in someone staying with you for years and you training them. So I think that's the place where it is, but that's not really most people in the United States. That's not their experience. They come into the tradition as adults or young adults.
Isn't that when they are?
Yeah.
I was just thinking on that, on what you were saying. Isn't that because most of us coming into this are coming after teenage years or during the mid-teenage years? Because I came in when I was 14. But
yeah,
unlike when you are on a compound, that authority or the authoritarian, you are a child coming up and being raised in a tradition, and
right.
everybody is part of that raising. Now, in some instances, in other sects of Ifa and Orisha, you will find that, like in Cuba, like in Brazil, okay, Venezuela, because the community is like that. But for the African American community, we only would have seen that in Oyatunji, okay. All right, so like with that, that's a lot different. So again, when you're having that authoritarian one, because for me that was difficult, but I had already had a sense of understanding service because I was raised in a household where service was primary. And so my relationship with Olodumare was one of being of service because I was raised that way, raised to have an idea of I got to study and I watched my elders and doing what they did in order to make sure that I'm doing the work, or I'm getting the text, or I'm getting the information. Okay. Here in the West, however, in many, like in Chicago back in the 60s, they had the Bembe, the social, that relationship. They had all these other good feeling things. Okay. But they were learning service, but everything was still tied up in the politics because many people coming out in the 60s wanted an identity and an association with a higher being that looked like them, because Jesus in the church was still long blonde hair and blue eyes. I can't identify with that. Okay. And so that was for that time. Okay. So me coming away from that tradition of the Abrahamic tradition and going into an African tradition, and as a teenager made it so much, I was like a kid in a candy store. You know, they made sense to me. I was able to, so you see spirits too? That what's it called? Oh, it's called Egun. Okay. And that's how I started, you start learning that way. Okay. And for me now, this is an adventure. Okay. So I'm finally getting somebody to connect my brain and everything else I'm doing to that spiritual network of African stuff that says we can do these things, because I'm doing these things as a kid and folks are saying, you know what you're saying? How you know that ain't the devil? It ain't the devil. It ain't the devil. So my great grandmother and grandmother, my great grandmother had to tell folks, leave her alone. She know what she's saying. Okay. So with that, it was a different kind of relationship. I started, to see things differently, but there's reasons for the authoritarian too, in that it has to have a structure. There has to be rules, there has to be laws to help protect you from the spiritual domain that you don't know nothing about, that you're about to enter into that has more of an invasive way of entering into you and dealing with your mind that is not necessarily explained in places like the church. Okay, they don't tell you in the church when you get the Holy Spirit. Sometimes they don't know what the hell that is. Okay, they just think it's Jesus. Okay,
Right on.
and it's like, okay, but in our tradition, we know that that could be a dearly departed loved one, or an Orisha, or something that's a little bit more stranger than that. But you have rules that are there in place to protect you from the vast damage that can happen if you're not careful with that. Okay, there's training that goes on that will help you in your mediumship, meditations that will go that help you center yourself so that when you are passing spirits, you're making sure that that spirit is something that you need to pass. There are cleansings and things that go on after that. So these are some of the things, there's things that authoritarian will do. Okay. But because we did not experience our tradition from its inception, and we were on that boat that got dropped off, some of the things got dropped that didn't get dropped off with us. Okay. So there's things we have to learn.
Yeah, the big one of the things that you said that resonates with me is we have to be really mindful that we all didn't come into this tradition in the same way, nor did we all come into this tradition at the same time in our lives. Some of us were 60, some of us were 10, some of us were 35. And we didn't all come into this tradition from the United States. There are those that came from Cuba, Puerto Rico, Panama, and other places where the tradition was, like for me, Panama, where the tradition was different. It was just different. And so as I've gone along through my years, when I was sane, I came to understand and to get information and follow other put the pieces to the puzzle together. If you are Lukumi or Santeria, anything else, then you come into Ifa, you realize they're the same. They come from the same tree, but they're very different in many instances. The way and there are similarities, and we can get along, but there are differences, and there are things that you must learn from whichever one that you weren't in. Like for me, there are things in Ifa that I am learning that I can relate back to the Lukumi, but it gives me a broader understanding of not only the Orisha, the Egun, but it gives me a broader understanding of myself.
Yeah.
And my relationship to the divine. And so I can only be grateful for the opportunity for Olodumare, for my Ori, to have allowed me to have these experiences. And I'm a sacred Ankh carrier too. So, I mean, I know the Kemetic tradition and Paolo. I mean, and now I'm developing a wonderful relationship with a Zuli Dantor and some of the other Loa. So I'm all mixed up.
Well, the beauty of having those five though it really had nothing to do with none of those paths. It just is.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So when I started off with those 5 spiritual paths, I mean, it
Mhm.
can show up in a lot of different kind of ways. Like I can go to a Baptist church and still see all 5 of those things. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? And that's organized religion. Or I could go to someone who is a who's a spiritualist and still see those 5 things.
Mhm.
Yes.
So I
Definitely.
think that it requires work. Like, you know what I
And-
mean? It's all about your own work. So I just put up there the 5 spiritual practice to achieving true spiritual self. They talk about the path to knowledge, the path to devotion, the path to meditation, the path to service, and the path to energy. And when I looked up those, as again, there's another 5. Again,
Yes.
palatable show. So this is another 5. But when
Mhm.
I started to look at like, well, what does that really mean? What does the path to spirituality really look like? You know what I mean? What does that mean? What is the path to knowledge, if you will?
Work.
You know what I mean?
It's work.
And
Right on.
an open mind so that you can allow that knowledge to come in and you're not stuck in dogma.
But even
It's
if you
still work.
are, it will remove itself. That's why
Yes.
time is of essence. So I think everybody comes in. When you walk in the world, you have your idea of what you think you know. Like I could look at somebody like, oh, she probably like this because I'm looking at what you look
Exactly.
like. But over time, it's like, no, that ain't true. Because this is my
Mhm.
that's not that may be how some people is, but this is how that person is. All of that is work. So it don't matter how you come in. You could come in stubborn, you could come in free floating. By the time I put time in there, you go through studying, chanting, praying, whatever end you
Meditating.
gotta do, you will end up being more freer than you were when you walked in the door when you started this journey. But some of
Mhm.
us don't know how to activate those 5 practices I just shared in terms of the path to knowledge. That means you have to read a lot. You got to be willing to study to participate. You know what I
Also
mean?
listen.
Right. You got to listen. Like all of those things. Even with the path to devotion, I'm trying to pick some of the definitions up as I go. But it basically talks about it's not just devotion has nothing to really do with church the way we know it because that's how it was introduced to us. Some people are devoted when they're doing their work or when they're
Mhm.
praying or when they're chanting or when they're we just have to figure out how do we show that in real time so people can get better working definitions of spirituality, not
Yes.
how far spiritual. Because some of us
If
are like,
Yes.
you
I'm so spiritual, I can't do nothing today.
if you talk about just even for the path of devotion, devotion is staying on course. It's real. It's simple. It's just staying on course. If staying on course means that I'm studying, if staying on course means that I am chanting, if staying on course means that I'm sitting down listening to my elders and ingesting what they're giving to me, that's the idea behind devotion. I'm staying to the course of that. I'm absorbing all of this information. I'm listening and to what's being said, digesting, making sure that, yeah, is that really what they said? Formulating questions. Okay. That devotion is also my worship because this is something we don't talk about. It's about worship as well. Are we showing our love for this? Are we showing that we like even doing this? As a kid, I knew I could. My mother made me and my brothers sing in the choirs, do our verses, and all of that. And then they show you off in front of the church so that you can say the 23rd Psalms. To this day, I still know the 23rd Psalms. Okay. And back and forth, back and forth. But it was that devotion to that and staying in course that also put me into understanding chanting, understanding Yoruba, being able to put out also my emotional connection to it. Yeah. when I'm doing a verse and doing an incantation, all of that was part of devotion. All of that was part of the worship. Okay. So it's not, it's not just one thing, but it is all of that. It's a cohesive thing. And it still goes back to, ultimately spirituality, because we're coming out and away from the structure, the rigid structure, or the rigid formulas that are taking place in organized religion structures. Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to share some of the definitions. I'm sorry. I got to
Okay.
break that down, make that smaller. You ready, sister? I'm sorry. Go ahead, because your line be cracking. Go ahead, sis.
I just wanted to say that I believe in the gravity of devotion.
Say that louder.
I believe in the gravity of devotion.
Yes.
I believe when you are willing to get out of the way to connect fully with anyone or anything, it's going to draw to it the nature of that connection.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, like there are some deities that I'm obsessed with that I don't have the initiation to or the icons or none of that, right? But I see as I walk through life evidence of presence. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like I see the evidence of their presence in the world, in my life, and just the energy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, and the and let me slow down.
Mm-hmm.
Time.
My relationship with Eshu is based on that principle, the gravity of devotion. There are
Yes.
times when you don't have nothing, you can't get yourself together. I can't even get myself together enough to bring nothing but an earnest prayer. That's all I got. You know what I'm saying? I can spit some rum, and I can chew on some peppers and open and make my mouth hot and do the thing. That's what I got, and
Mm-hmm.
I can honestly say, like Ye said, when you can connect with all of you, like you intellectually know some things about this spiritual entity, your emotion is in play, and you're doing what you know how to. You have engaged your body in the invocation or worship or gratitude or whatever it is. Like I believe in that. I think that that is it takes you on quantum leaps from where you are in terms of where your life how your life can evolve, because that's and it works in relationships with human beings as well. You know what I mean?
It's
It works in
especially.
relationships with human beings as well. Like sometimes you just need to get your ego out of the way and just
Yep.
let your whole self be present to
Mm-hmm.
what's happening in that exchange, and that's a huge thing for me. And I will say that in every area of my life, even when I wanted to learn something and I just let myself feel what came up for me, and I studied, and it sticks like glue. There's no better traction in your life than the gravity of devotion.
Yes.
Sister Allison asked, would you start with your ancestors first and then follow into the five ways of the path? That's our question to you all.
I don't think
For African spirituality and ancestors, because any other traditions, like we'll talk about them in the same context. But that's your beginning, because that's the push, the energy push is from that area. Those ancestors are the closest to you. And when I say ancestors, I'm talking about dearly departed ones that fit the criteria of what ancestral force means. And you can take it that far, but then it also goes into layers. Um, ancestral worship is those layers. It's now you start to go back into the dogma, and following the path of devotion is following, going into devotion and serving and talking and having conversations and feeding your ancestors and looking at the conversations that you have with them and looking for the signs of them talking to you. If your mediumship abilities are more open, then you'll hear them. But good training will help you to decipher between what is your own thought ways versus what is actually that a spirit talking to you. And takes it to a whole different kind of level. So you do have to take that into consideration because sometimes people maybe think they're listening to their ancestors when they're really listening to something deeper in their cell memory. That's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily just their ancestors. It's your deeper cell memory. Okay. You got to know what ancestral forces there. And that's why it's always good to have good training and have good education in the system, in the system of African spirituality. Somebody that's going to help you go from point A to point B and help you to see from point A to point B. Yeah. For example, I don't know if I've talked about when I was a kid. And before I went to working as a, not working, but worshiping with Marisha, as a younger kid um, in the church, one of the things I loved to see was the spirit, because I actually could see the spirit of a thing enter into a person and then the explosiveness, when the explosiveness of the body functions and, and especially it's a combination of music, the prayers and everything, and that person's own personal experience. Well, me and my cousin one day had decided that we wanted to go to the show. Okay. And my mother and her mother said we couldn't go to the show. Okay. So we cooked it up and said we're gonna go to church and see Yancey. Um, one of Reverend Yancey's children was the choir director. He's about our age too, but he could sing. Okay. And he usually had the whole place getting excited and the whole 9 yards, because they were bringing their emotion, their love, their joy, their devotion, and they needed to feel connected to God, right? So anyway, but we were using this as a way to get out of, anybody seeing us go to the show because that was when the Regal was, alive and well, and Smokey Robinson and then were playing and stuff like that. So we wanted to go see Smokey Robinson. So anyway, we're in church, okay, and we're sitting in the row, and everybody's singing, and I'm watching these folks, and I'm like, oh wow, they feeling good, we feeling good, and my cousin saying we getting ready to go. Well, before we even get ready to go, there was something that came over me, and it said, if I were you, I'd move down. So I'm like, okay. So I moved down because some say, when you don't see this thing around you, okay, that's talking to you, right? So I moved on down, and what next happens is the woman that was behind us got happy, as they said, and she knocked over the chairs that we were sitting in, where she would knock my ass out. Okay, so clearly I was hearing spirit. Okay, and it was watching it. It made me understand that what a lot of people thought was Holy Spirit was the Agun that was walking with them.
Mm.
As I started to learn more about African spirituality, that it really wasn't holy, as it was that spirit trying to get through to communicate with them. And that's why I say I love the because the devotion, the energetic feel that comes from the electricity that comes from the other world and the portals that are open from that gives you that possibility to connect to that spirit, that diviner spirit. And so with that, needless to say, I did go see Smokey Robinson, but I
Mhm.
also got caught. Okay.
Oh,
Mhm. Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
my mama did that. I got caught.
Well, the spirit wasn't only talking to you; it was talking to your mama too.
Yes, that's true because the fruit don't fall far from the tree.
There
Just
you
like
go.
right.
I am now, my mama was the same way.
Mhm.
Okay, my mama truly was the same way.
Mhm.
So the sister had
Mhm.
another question on here. She had the question of, hold on. Uh,
How do you find train? How do you get training?
thank you.
You mentioned training, and Allison was asking how do you get training.
How do you get training?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's enough. One, you want to investigate who you're dealing with. Okay, I'm a firm believer in going to places that have good reputations. Okay, and
Mhm.
especially that's with any tradition. We do that with recommendations on what church to go to. Okay,
Mhm.
so if we would do the same thing with what priest to go to. Okay,
Yeah.
or priestesses, or you want to have people who have good character. Okay, very good character. So that's the thing that you look for. Um, where to that we have different kind of directories now. Um, but and making sure that you vet them,
Yeah.
their initiation and um not only their initiation and their training is valued and valid. Okay, that we do things by lineage. Who did my grandfather? Who did my godfather train with? Who trained him? His godfather, and on, and making sure that what they were training you to was the thing that was solid in the tradition. Whether it's a Risha, whether it's a Khan, you want to make, whatever that system may be, you want to make sure that that is good, solid training.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. That's I know
That's
it's
true.
not always easy to do, but I'm gonna tell you, I also have looked at people's students,
hmm
and if their life is going like this, if they're doing what they're supposed to do, and their life is going like this, then that's a good sign too. I like to know that when somebody does work for you, that what they said was gonna happen happens.
Yeah,
I
I
like to
mean,
know that.
for real, for real.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I've been blessed in the sense that every house that I worked out of, I had solid people. Okay, that good, they had good training. That they weren't always afraid to, if they didn't know something, they say,
Mhm.
"Oh, hold on, I don't know this. I'm gonna get back to you," and get back to you. Okay.
Mhm.
Right.
And so that, one, you have to also make sure that ego stuff isn't there. You know,
Right.
if I don't know something, I don't know something. Okay, I'm gonna find out because that gives me an opportunity too, as a teacher now. it gives me an opportunity to learn something new, learn something different. Okay, because now you've opened up a door for me to do so. Okay, and to help, to help in for me to help you, I also need to get the help and education to do more. And that's, that it broadens my plate. And I love that.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah, I always say that relationships are always symbiotic. Whatever I give to you, I get from you, and vice versa. And your questions, whether I know the answer or I don't, they always serve to teach me more. A teacher is nothing but a learner who is sharing what they have learned. And so if we keep that in mind, we don't let our knowledge go to our head, and as if there is nothing on this earth that we don't know. We have to get those questions and then say, I don't have clue as to what you're talking about, but I know me somebody.
That got a clue.
I know me somebody that got a clue.
Yeah.
And if that somebody don't have a clue, they know somebody that got a clue.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I'll find out and I'll get back to you, or I'll put you two in touch with each other, and we'll go from there. But in the meantime, anything you learn about it, please let me know, and I'll do the same so that we both grow. Where's the
Mm-hmm.
problem? I want to know as much as I can so I can get all the blessings that are there.
Well, part of that isn't, when we find that opposite is coming in, okay, or people who are afraid to share, okay. Oh, I gotta hold on to this because they might know a little bit more than me. That's ego and it's
Mm.
politics.
Yeah.
Um, on where I see the most of that is on Elay Facebook, okay, where you see the
Elect
majority.
I'm
Elay
sorry.
Facebook.
That never gets old.
Oh,
God, I love it. Oh God.
Yeah,
you know,
that hey, that's one of the biggest growing Elay's going. Anyway, go ahead.
isn't it? I'm telling you, man, they huge, aren't they? I mean,
Ooh,
Yeah.
they're a
God,
mega
they killed
church.
me.
They're a true mega church.
God, that was
But
fire.
that's the truth. I don't, we see people really wanting to garner information and knowledge
Mhm.
and stuff. And what they want also is the connection that they're not getting from other spaces.
Yeah.
Um, and part of that is that when we start talking about African traditional religions, spirituality, what happen is that the politicism of that is that we're not putting that or garnering that into an organized space outside of one's home. You know,
Mm.
in Nigeria there are temples. You know,
Yes.
they're temples. That's a
Yeah.
secret, but it's temples. Okay, it's organized. Okay, they got Arab organizations, they got Yanifa
Yeah.
organizations, they got
Yeah.
Orisha organizations.
Yeah.
They got egg based. I mean, it's organized. Okay,
Mhm.
here it's
Yeah.
politicized. We got
Yeah.
Elaites. Okay,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, what that does for us is that it keeps us from getting to the spiritual nature of what we're trying to find. And this Elay on social media has given way to being able to formulate that in some way or fashion so that they, that ability to have facility, to have a way of a meeting place and a gathering and a worship house. Okay, we gotta do it
Yeah.
on social media. Okay. But what happens with that is that unfortunately that gets a little politicized
Yeah.
because of the different characterizations that take place. I think that, we used to have at least um, people had organized different books of priests that were able to, this priest is vetted, people who were vetted as being good teachers. Okay. And I think that's something that needs to really stay in the forefront. Who
Yeah.
is a good teacher? Who's going to get you to a place of spiritual development? Because that's what we're talking about. Spiritual development, and to take you from the idea from the basics to more. Okay. So that's, that more being, I don't want to just be a good Ifa priest. Okay. I want to be a great person that's willing to share, that's willing to love and have compassion and care. Okay. And not afraid of doing that, not afraid of being that sharing and loving and kind person, at the same time developing myself spiritually so that I can see my cosmos. Okay. So I can be with the divine because I like them. Okay. I just like living too. Okay. But that's where I want to go with that. And I'd like for us to be able to see that in the long run. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, the closing question is going to be Oya's question, and she's asked,
Uh-huh.
should we ask the people who do spiritual work for us how they honor, invoke ancestors prior to sitting on their mat? How can we tell if people are using the ancestral forces to harm others? How will it impact us if they are? That's our
Mm-hmm.
closing question. Sorry about that.
Okay. Um, in asking someone how they invoke, are they asking them how they're doing the work? Okay. That I'm kind of confused with that because invocation you're doing with prayer, you're doing with chanting. Okay. And that's something that people are trained to do too. Okay. You're watching them do it anyway. They when you're doing that aspect of it. The invocation. Now, if they want to learn how to do the invocation, then that's another thing. You ask the person, why shouldn't you ask them? Oh, they can only tell you yay or nay. Okay. When it comes to people doing harmful work, you always gonna find somebody that's gonna do negative work, somebody that wants to control another human being. Okay, I want him. Okay, he should be my husband, not yours. Okay, people do that. Okay, that should be my wife. I want her money. We have people who are going to do negative work. If they do that kind of work, I'd say run as fast as you can. Get away from them. Okay. Um, However, will it impact you? Your Ori is and your ancestors are greater than you know.
Mm.
Much greater than you know. That's why we get dreams. When something ain't right, we get dreams. Something. Wow. I hadn't had a nightmare. I don't feel right. Something's wrong. And it's persistent. Now you're going to find out why something is wrong. Okay. And now you go on the search to get an answer to that. The thing of it is, I'm going to tell you something that someone that was dear to me told me many, many years ago. Your character is what can protect you. If you have really good character, it's going to cover you. It's not, I stopped a long time ago worrying about who throwing this, who throwing that, who doing this. They gonna make me no. It's foolish. Okay, because my Ifa is greater than all of that. My Ifa is everything. So shoot your best shot, boo. You know, that's it. Shoot your best shot. Okay, because you ain't shooting me, you shooting Oli Demare. I came here for a job to do, and I'm doing my job. So when we look at that, people who, if you want to know what they're invoking, how they're invoking, ask them.
Yeah.
And that's all you got to do. They should be able to tell you, I am chanting this, okay? And this is why I'm chanting this. I do it all the time. Usually why a lot of my readings end up being longer than 1, 2, 3, 4 is because I'm using it as an education opportunity.
Yep.
So that you can sit down and ingest exactly what's going on this map. You need to know how this spirit is coming. You need to feel this because it's going to take you to your next level, the next place of your destiny. And I want you to feel that because I feel it all the time. That's what you want. So when people are coming in and I've had people who have asked me, quite frankly, can you get this man for me? And I said, no, I can't. Why don't you go talk to him? And if he tell you no, then go bye-bye. I'm not doing that kind of work. But if he's in your destiny, then we're going to do the work to make sure that you all are together. But it has to be your destiny, and it certainly has to be his. I ain't doing no left-hand work like that. Okay?
And trust yourself.
Yeah.
Trust
yourself.
When you have the dream, when you get the intuitive hit, when you have that feeling in your gut that something ain't right, get your ass
Ain't
up
right.
and don't ask for permission to trust yourself. Don't look around. Don't do none of that shit. Just go. And I'm telling you from experience, it's not anecdotal. Experience, get your ass up out there. Because yes, if you are in the vicinity, it can impact you. But it's just better not to be in the vicinity. Just get up and go. Because if you wait too long, then that becomes the lesson that you get to learn. How to trust yourself.
Yeah.
That little thing in the back of your head, that little energy that comes at the back of your head that says something ain't right.
Yeah.
That energy.
That's giving you a choice right there.
Something that
how you look or how you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't go for the look good. Definitely get up. Like, you may feel some kind of way about disturbing the peace, but let your destiny be more important than anything anybody can say or feel about you.
Something that Ia said for me bears repeating, and she said, she said that she trusts Ifa, that she knows Ifa has her and protects her, and nothing that anybody does can come against that. That's a mindset. That's who you are. That's how you think. That's who you are. That's your reality. And if that is your reality, then that is the way it will be. Yes. And so it is a matter of us all being steadfast in our own reality of protection and standing with Ifa, or whatever name you give to the God of your understanding. Standing firm in that energy, that is your reality. and nothing can come against you if that is your reality. If it comes, you will feel it.
But it can't touch you.
I feel it in the back of my neck usually. That's why I've got a lotus back there. Um, no, I really do have a lotus tat. And if that's your reality, it can't touch you. That's why they say years ago when you used to talk about well, they used to call it ghosts. When you talk about a ghost, and they would say you have to believe in ghosts in order to see one. Well, of course, we know that's not true. But
Right.
the point is,
They
you have
believe in you.
yeah, you have to believe in whatever it is. You have to know that Ifa is your strength and your protection. And then Ifa is your strength and protection.
Mm-hmm.
But you must know it.
Ashe.
Yes. Yes, Ro.
Okay, so here I am. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm up here on the side doing something else. All right, so y'all, this was great for today. This was fire. We needed this on this Friday because we're gonna be going into the weekend. This is a lot for people to listen to and digest and meditate on and all those great things. Thank you all so much for joining us today. And we look forward to talking with you again on Monday.
Okay.
Ashe.
Psst, psst.